topic which I have selected is global environmental issues and mitigation strategies for sustainability of the biosphere. As we are all aware that environment is sum total of the physical and biotic conditions influencing the responses of the organisms on the Mother Earth. And as you know, Mother Earth, on which we all are thriving, is a natural resource bank on which the sustenance and livelihood of all life forms depends. And the life supporting system of the Earth, comprising of interacting physical, chemical, and biological global scale cycles together constituting the biosphere, representing atmosphere, from which we draw air, hydrosphere, from which we draw water, and lithosphere, from which we draw food, etc., and all other things for sustenance, is ailing. We know, as recently Madam Reddy, who is the head and founder head of Council for Green Revolution, rightly suggested that we have to look into the reasons because of which the things are changing now. We see a lot of changes as far as our global environment is concerned. Significant changes in Earth's atmosphere due to increasing human population and activities, such as changes relating to depletion of fossil fuel resources, large-scale changes in land cover use, excessive use of terrestrial productivity and water, over-exploitation of natural resources, etc. All these things have led to the evolution of yet another geological era, which is being referred as Anthropocene. And it is suggested to have begun with the following features: near exhaustion of fossil fuel within few human generations, transformation of about 50% of the land surfaces, excessive use of chemical fertilizers, increased concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and extinction rates of various life forms increasing at an alarming rate. And we see large number of wild animals, monkeys, leopards, nilgais, etc., barasingas, boars, etc., entering into human inhabitations because we have intruded into their inhabitations, and we are over a period of time, significant changes have taken place in the Earth's atmosphere. We are witness to the overexploitation of nature and natural resources, and we are witness to the resulting global climatic changes because of altered biogeochemistry, and we are witness to all, you can say, societal disintegration. We have seen a height of it during this COVID-19 pandemic, all sorts of things: health crisis, family breakdown, conflicts, etc., nepotism, greed at the peak of it in everything, and we are likely to exceed 3 billion population by 2025, and obviously we are going to face all these such things at a larger scale. As far as Earth's atmosphere is concerned, if we see that there are two very important things. One is the outside atmosphere outside the Earth's strata, which is a multi-layered gaseous envelope which helps in filtering the deleterious radiations from coming onto the Earth's surface, UVC and UVB radiations. And we have in the near vicinity of the Earth, the troposphere, around 10 to 15 kilometers distance, where the changes in the climate that controls the changes on the Earth's surface. So we have in this area, we have a number of greenhouse gases, which plays a very important role as far as inhabitation on the Earth's surface is concerned. These greenhouse gases, they absorb the heat, they absorb the ultraviolet radiations going out from the Earth's surface and helps to maintain some degree of temperature which is congenial for the life forms to stay. Had these greenhouse gases not been there in the atmosphere, the temperature of the Earth's strata would have gone to -15 to -20 degrees centigrade. So their presence in definite proportion in the Earth's atmosphere is an obligatory requirement. In the nature, there is a definite balance of these gases, and due to industrialization and excessive overexploitation of the Earth's resources, lot of things have been thrown into the environment. Lot of greenhouse gases, huge amount of carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases, chlorofluorocarbons, etc., which were not the natural component of the environment. They were thrown, and a sort of shield of these greenhouse gases was created in the near Earth's atmosphere, and because of which the heat which would have gone into the environment, that is trapped within, and because of which the global warming, and we have a greenhouse effect. We all know all these things. I need not to go into these details. It is not that the Earth's climate is not changed over a period. It has been changing throughout the history. We have seen 7 cycles of glacial advances and retreat, with abrupt end of the last ice age about 11,700 years ago. And during the beginning of 1970s, global average temperature has increased by 0.74 degrees over the past century. Warming trend during the last 25 years is more than double. And the variation and shift in weather conditions over space and time of different scales and magnitude has resulted into the climate change which we are experiencing. These are some of the greenhouse gases. There are over 30 greenhouse gases, out of which these are very important. And we can see that at the pre-industrial time, the amount of carbon dioxide was around 280 ppm, and it has crossed 418 ppm on May 2021, increased over by 31%. Similarly, methane has increased by over 151%, and chlorofluorocarbons, which were not there in the environment, these are man-made components and thrown into the environment. They are increasing at the rate of about 4% per year, and the residence time in the environment of these ranges from 5 to around 260 years. So, and these gases, they have, each individual component has got its own capacity to absorb heat. Warming potential. Methane is 21 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. We know the amount of livestock we are managing, and the rice wheat cycle, the amount of methane which is being thrown into the environment. And chlorofluorocarbons, 12,000 to 15,000 times more effective in absorbing heat as compared to carbon dioxide. Water vapors are responsible for 2/3 warming of the Earth's surface, and they have the same at the same wavelength, they absorb heat as is absorbed by carbon dioxide. So like that, all these, they adds to the warming potential of the Earth. And about 74% of the total agriculturally generated greenhouse gases are contributed by low-income third world countries. So these are some of the chlorofluorocarbons which are being used in various industrial processes, and this is their ozone depleting potential, and this is their residence time. They can stay in active state in the environment from around 15 years to 500 years, you can see. And it is a sheer chance that the chlorofluorocarbons were selected for these industrial activities. Had it been bromine instead of fluorine, bromine is 100 times more effective than chlorine in targeting ozone. So like this, they are. This is a vicious cycle of what you call as ozone depletion. The ultraviolet radiation striking the chlorofluorocarbon molecules here, the chlorine is released, and it targets the ozone in the environment, forms chlorine monoxide, and the oxygen within here is liberated, and the nascent oxygen in the environment has more affinity for oxygen. It joins with oxygen, and chlorine is let free again for another you can cycle. So like that, this cycle, vicious cycle, goes on as far as ozone depletion is concerned. So in the environment in Antarctica, Arctic region, where the maximum ozone depletion is taking place, the cold winds, they forms a sort of whirlpool of winds around and they insulate the polar regions, and in this insulated region they don't let anything move in, and minus 80 to minus 90-degree temperature is created. And in such a situation, other greenhouse gases like methane and nitrous oxide, they get frozen up, and the climate atmosphere within this vortex becomes very congenial for the chlorine to become hyperactive to target ozone. So here during springtime, the overlap of cold conditions and sunlight, that creates a situation quite favorable for the hyperactivity of chlorine, and the ozone is targeted in such a situation, and the thinning of ozone has resulted in decrease in this of ozone in the stratospheric region, which is a good ozone which help in trapping the UVC and UVB radiation from 450 parts per billion to 92 parts per billion. So global average decline of ozone in stratosphere is reported to be around 3% for this 1997 to 2001, and 5% loss of ozone results in 10% increase in UVB radiations into the Earth's atmosphere. And entry of these radiations into the Earth's atmosphere causes a lot of problems, including skin cancer, including eye cataract, including problems of crops, etc., all such things. And now NASA in 2018 report has said that the ozone layer has started recovering due to the ban on the use of chlorofluorocarbons. You can see the ozone hole. This is a picture which I have taken from the internet. You can see how the ozone, you can say around this Antarctic region, you can see this 1981, 87, it is getting darker, still darker, and you can see 1999 and still darker. This is how it is. It has resulted. There is yet another aspect to the ozone depletion, that is cosmic ray theory for ozone depletion. There is reported to be a correlation between cosmic ray intensity and the global ozone depletion. Cosmic rays are concentrated over the north and south poles due to Earth's magnetic field and have the highest electron production rate at the height of 15 to 18 kilometers above the ground level, where ozone layer is most, you can say, concentrated. So here these radiations, they target the ozone. The cosmic rays are reported to cause drastic reaction of ozone depletion, depleting halogens in that region. It has been predicted that global ozone will recover by 1 to 2.5% between 2000 to 2020 because of the remedial measures which were taken over a period of time. As per NASA, I have already told you, ozone layer has started recovering. However, cosmic ray theory predicted that one of the severest losses over the South Pole in 2008, 2009, and another large hole in 2019, 2020. These are some contradictions in this theory. So as for the efforts which at the global level for you can say checking the ozone depletion are concerned, Montreal Protocol was one of the earliest to take some measures for protection of ozone, and it was suggested to phase out use of chlorofluorocarbons, halons, etc., and other man-made ozone depleting components so as to protect this ozone layer, which is helping in filtering the deleterious radiation from the atmosphere. And in response to that, the developed world started using alternative refrigerants for phasing out chlorofluorocarbons. And India's commitment to chlorofluorocarbons to phase out chlorofluorocarbons and other ozone depleting substances are by 2040, with the domestic level consumption to be frozen by 2015. In 1999, Rockwell Industry, Hyderabad, started using propane and isobutane, while large companies like Videocon, Voltas, Elwin, Whirlpool, they shifted to HFCs, whose production and use stands banned after 2020 in US. The most common HCFC substitute for chlorofluorocarbon is still in use in refrigeration and air conditions is SCFC 22 and R22. Some possibilities of the climate change, their warning, the effect. Nicholas Stern, a renowned World Bank economist, in his 700-page report warned that effect of climate change could be worse than the two world wars, and over 20 million tons of carbon dioxide is being generated by humanity every year, which is absorbed by nature. And there is a limit to which the nature can tolerate this carbon dioxide, can adjust this carbon dioxide. So we have to be very careful about that. And with the result, global average temperature is increasing. Global average sea level is also rising. And Professor James Locke of USA believes that 90% of the mankind could be wiped out if the planet Earth heats up with the same pace as it is heating up presently. So these are some warnings. And what is happening, we are seeing it. We have seen just now the cyclonic storms in the you can say Amphan, Takote, Yas. We have tsunamis, floods, cloud bursts, etc. All these things are indicators, direct indicators. These are warning signals because of these activities: rapid industrial growth, increased energy consumption, increased carbon dioxide, greenhouse emissions, etc. All these things are basically resulting in these things. You can see the glaciers, melting of giant ice sheet of Greenland and Antarctica. Greenland ice sheet is reported to be melting at the rate of 250 gigatons a year, while Antarctica is losing about 194 gigatons of ice. Melting of Himalayan ice glacier has doubled since the start of 21st century. So like that, we have to be very careful about, we have to see which areas are contributing and where the remedial measures are required to be taken. These are the areas. Here you can see from this graphic: residential, commercial, manufacturing, agriculture, mining, and construction areas. These are the areas where we need to use green technologies for taking remedial measures for mitigation, for carbon offsetting. We know every year 0.8% global forest area is being cleared, which is adding 0.3 to 2.6 gigatons of carbon dioxide annual. And combustion of fossil fuel is another aspect. These are some of the major areas where you have this is the percentage of greenhouse gas emissions from every sector. As far as the ecological footprint is concerned, ecological footprint basically refers to the human demand on Earth's ecosystem, and we have to compare it with the ecological capacity of the Earth to regenerate. They should be in balance with one another. This is not happening. For 2006, humanity's total ecological footprint demand from the Earth's crust was at 1.4 planet Earths. And in other words, humanity used ecological services 1.4 times as fast as was available, Earth was able to renew them. We are withdrawing much more than the Earth's strata is able to regenerate it. We can see, if you see the global footprint network, so the world average biocapacity, generation capacity is about, you can see the world average ecological footprint demand in 2002, 0.7 global hectares, and regeneration capacity was 1.8 global hectares. You can see, look at the difference of 0.9 global hectares per person extra, which is being withdrawn from the Earth's strata. So there are countries, why people are running to Australia, to Canada, to New Zealand, because they are ecologically surplus countries. They have enough you can say, regenerative capacity on their Earth strata. You can see Canada here, the population they are supporting, and the ecological footprint, the demand 7.8, and the biocapacity, generation capacity almost double. And they are ecologically creditor countries, surplus countries. And here we stand here, we are consuming almost double the amount the Earth is able to regenerate. That is why the crisis situation here. So carbon footprint is net amount of pollution we create on daily basis in our household activities, in our various functions, etc., while moving from one place to another. So there has to be individual efforts for mitigation, for offsetting the carbon footprint through various, by taking through clean development mechanism operations such as solar and wind energy use, reforestation, and all such things. They have to be practiced so as to offset such, you can say, carbon footprint. There are direct impacts of climate changes we are witnessing in different regions, different parts of the country. In Indo-Gangetic Plain, you can see the drought-like situation in Punjab, in West Bengal. Intensity of cyclone has increased over a period of time. UP and Bihar drought has increased. The rice fields decreased. Himalayan region mean temperature has gone up by 0.6 degrees centigrade. Frequency of warmer days is increasing. Floods are increasing. You have cloud bursts. You have frequent flooding. And in peninsular India, frequent severe cyclones, sea regression, rise in sea level, and desertification. All such things, they are indicators of where climate change. What we needs to do, we have to look into all these areas. This is the percentage of emissions which different areas are created. We have to look into these areas for solutions. We have to use, you can say, green eco-friendly technologies for mitigation of these changes. It is not that the efforts were not there. Since times immemorial, Kautalaya's time, Lord Dalhousie's time, there were regulations for management of forest, for maintenance of forest, for protection of natural resources. Even in our constitution, Article 45, 48A of Directive Principles of State Policy, and under the Fundamental Duties, Article 51AG, they provide provisions for protection and improvement of natural environment, including forests, lakes, all the resources, and their conservative use. Ministry of Environment and Forest is the custodian of all these natural resources and protection. So we need to look into all these things. There were various laws which were enacted over a period of time, and it is not that, it is basically intention to implement them. At many places, large number of NGOs, as the one who is one of the sponsors, Council for Green Revolution here, they have played a huge role in protecting the environment. We should remember Sundarlal Bahuguna, the Chipko movement, whom we lost just few days back, sometimes back, and some other NGOs who have played a pivotal role. Sundarlal Bahuguna went to the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi so as to request to put a blanket ban on cutting of trees, and it is since then it was enforced ultimately. There is one old lady, Kinkri Devi in Himachal Pradesh, who was illiterate. She got married at the age of 14 and got, you can say, widowed at the age of 22, and she fought the mining mafia. She was totally illiterate and went up to Supreme Court, and ultimately the mining was banned in that area. There were around 48, you can say, firms which were engaged in mining. So there was a Earth Summit in 1990s where the initiation was started and it was adopted to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 5.2% below 1990 level in the first commitment period, which will exhaust by 2012 by taking different remedial measures. And it was for the first time that in the Rio Summit, the Agenda 21 for achieving sustainable development in 21st century was adopted. So all these things ultimately started materializing, and the Kyoto Protocol happened. Here, the same target was fixed to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 5.2% over 1992 level by adopting Green Development Mechanism, joint implementation, assigned amount units, and European Union have their own targets to reduce emissions by 21% by 2020 as compared to 2005. So it is not that there was an impact. It was noticed when evaluation was done of the Kyoto Protocol, and there was a reduction as compared to 1990. You can see here in some of the cases, Russia reduced their emissions substantially. Otherwise, overall there was a reduction, but Russia reduced their emissions substantially. Even Germany reduced. UK also reduced. You can see the graphics here, the impact of these Kyoto Protocol. Then subsequently, Copenhagen summit held, where there were a lot of discussion, and 5 basic countries, Brazil, South Africa, India, and China, they were able to resist the move of the developed countries to make the developing countries sign up. They wanted the developing country to sign up an agreement, and they wanted that the developing countries fix up a year beyond which the peaking of the emissions will stop. So they basically stopped. They were able to manage their interest there. Then Cancun summit held here. Basically, the process of you can say green business started here, and the green fund initiation for raising the green fund and carbon pricing was initiated. And then Durban summit held, where universal legal agreement on the climate change as soon as possible, because Kyoto was to end in 2012. So then Doha climate summit was held to facilitate the implementation of the protocol after the first commitment period of 2012. So idea was to quantify the emission limitation or reduction of commitments for the future. So then the Paris climate deal and the ratchet mechanism, where about 195 countries they participated. The aim was rolling back the global warming, and it was fixed that global warming to be brought down well below 2 degrees centigrade over the pre-industrial level, and to strive for 1.5, bringing it down to 1.5 degree. A highly ambitious plan was framed, and the ratchet mechanism was initiated, which refers to framing the progressively ambitious action plan to mitigate the climate change. And basically, the developed countries were asked to maintain a fund of $100 billion per year for funding the efforts for mitigation these changes. So, although the Paris summit failed to achieve its objective to contain global warming below 2 degrees centigrade over the prevailing situation during that time, then came an initiative to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases and from deforestation and degradation, which is referred as REDD. And going beyond that, it was also stressed to impress upon conservation and sustainable management of forest and enhancement of forest carbon stocks. It was subsequently taken up at Madrid conference, and primarily here the focus of discussion was Article 6, which describes the role of carbon markets. And here there was a disagreement about trading of negative emissions under Kyoto Protocol. Here, negative emission basically refers to the activities that helps to remove carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. It refers to removal of CO2, which adversely impacts the atmospheric temperature. Here, the emphasis was in trading of the hot air and basically making it a business, but no agreement on this article could be achieved. Proposed food systems summit, which was proposed to be held in 2020, but because of pandemic, it was shifted to 2021. The parties were required to formulate a plan, a 5-year, as per the provisions of the Paris Agreement, that ratchet mechanism, to formulate and submit a progressively ambitious plan to mitigate the climate change. This was, and in Kyoto Protocol, basically the two countries, it may be two advanced countries and extra 2 countries, or advanced country and a developing country, they can hedge an agreement with one another under this protocol to mitigate their emissions. One of the country may fund and provide technology, and other can help in mitigating the emissions. here you can see these are the examples of one annexure one country, advanced country, and this is the developing country here. So under Kyoto Protocol, they were required to retain their emissions at this level. So this particular annexure one.
Sir, can we sum up? Can we sum up? Because other speaker is also there. Next speaker is waiting.
I have around 10 slides more. I'll rush up. I'll rush up within 3-4 minutes. Yes. So here they are able to retain their emissions at this level, and they're left with surplus this certified emissions for trading. And but this country was able to retain it up this level, and it has to buy its emission to bring it down to the level, permissible level, by spending the money. So green fund was used for this, and like that they can share their business. For this in India also we have National CDM Authority at Delhi, where the projects can be submitted, and these are validated and ultimately evaluated in terms of certified emission reduction units. It takes about 9 to 14 months for this. These are the 6 greenhouse gases which are traded, which invites money in the world market, and you can calculate your carbon budgets also. These are the carbon markets: Kyoto mandatory regime, non-Kyoto mandatory regimes, and voluntary regimes, where you can put up your projects saying that yes, this is the project which have capability to mitigate this much of certified emission units. These are some of the projects which in India, this is the older slide, which are running under these systems, and this is the amount of money up to 2008 in crores. 71,000 crores investment under clean development projects, and by 2010 these are the 3 sectors where money to the level of $39.15 billion was, you can say, raised through clean development projects. Indian firm JSW Steel won largest single certified emission reduction units of 5.4 million in 2 projects in CDM units. Fate of Indian projects. There are number of, you can say, Indian companies which have registered number of projects under these clean development mechanisms, and thus around 300 million credits of certified emission reduction units are available for trading. At the best times, the certified emission reduction units were selling at $25 per certified emission units, but now the things have changed, and after the carbon market slowed down, finally it fell to about 25 cents per carbon reduction unit, or to the maximum of $1. So you can see the net amount of loss which is being incurred. And in this, US, Canada, Australia, Russia are not participating in the carbon markets. Himachal Pradesh has one of the very successful projects, a Himalayan Watershed Development Program, in which farmers were made partners, and the agreement was held with government of Spain, and CDM project involves local communities, small marginal farmers and plantations, etc. And World Bank has now agreed to release a payment of 1.93 crores under this project. The project will make villagers as strategic sellers and carbon credits, and the beneficiaries will get additional income of 3,000 per hectare per annum. There are national missions. These are the national missions in which 8 national mission green projects can be submitted. These are national action programs to combat desertification. And plants are the best source, which can help in sequestering the carbon dioxide, which can help in reducing the energy requirement by planting them strategically, and they can sequester, and we can calculate how much amount of the carbon has been sequestered by individual plant. And there are a number of initiatives which have been and which can be taken, ways to cut gas emission, managing agriculture and livestock, reducing forest clearing, conservation agriculture, use of alternative energy sources, practicing agroforestry, innovative irrigation system, carbonization to sequester carbon from the terrestrial ecosystems, and scientific grain storage, identify germ plasms which can tolerate expected future biotic and abiotic stresses, and carbon tax. It is a fee for making users of fossil fuel to pay for climate change. And basically in India, de facto carbon tax in the form of coal tax has been imposed, and we have witnessed Swachh Bharat Abhiyan cess. We also pay charges in various national parks, botanic gardens, recreational parks. This is a sort of de facto carbon tax providing ecological services. Sweden has carbon tax since 1991. This is one of the options which has to be given. So conservationist perspective is given by Neith Bolding. The world is finite, resources are scarce, things are bad and will be worse. Coal is burned and gas exploded, forests cut and soil eroded, wells are dry and air polluted, dust is blowing, trees uprooted, oil is going, ores depleted, drains receive what is excreted, land is sinking, seas are rising, man is far too enterprising, fire will rage with man to fan it, soon we'll have a plundered planet. So these are the unique initiative. We are all aware of these. These are being taken, and you can see a typical tree, if planted, provides services worth 19,62,000 US dollar in the form of ecological service. And if it is sold in the market, only 590 US dollars. There is a Meti Andolan in Uttarakhand started by Kalyan Singh, a retired teacher. Meti basically refers to married women's parental home. After the marriage ceremony is over, just a married couple leaves for a small clearing, Meti 1 forested area, where they are allowed to plant a tree, normally orange tree. Planted saplings are treated like their daughters by the villagers, and by planting the sapling at the time of their marriage, not only leaves behind the precious memory of, but they also play part in safeguarding the mother earth. After plantation is over, groom hands over a tidy sum towards the Meti fund, which is handled by the village girls and used for nurturing Meti 1 and the welfare of the poor and underprivileged women. Such efforts are required to be taken. So to make the mother earth green and keep it clean, each one of us needs to put in individual efforts, and we need to emulate Sundarlal Bahuguna, Chandi Prasad Bhatt of Chipko movement, Pandurang Hegde of Karnataka of Epico movement, Rajendra Singh of Alwar of Water Man of India, Baba Sichewal of Kali Ben fame of Punjab, Kalyan Singh of Meti Andolan, Kinkri Devi of Himachal, who fought the mining mafia. All these selfless efforts, they are required to be emulated and taken forward so as to pass the earth green and safe for the next generation. We shall have not another earth if this one is dead. So try to replenish the natural resources and be conservative in using them. Earth has enough to meet the need of every inhabitant, but not the greed, as was rightly said by none other than father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you very much. I am grateful to the organizers for providing me this opportunity. Thank you.